When it comes to damage to your body or recovery, not all tools and strength training or modalities are equal. So here's a good rule of thumb. Free weights tend to cause more damage than machines. Compound lifts tend to cause more damage than single joint lifts. And standing exercises tend to cause more damage than seated exercises. Also, generally true, higher reps tend to cause more damage than lower reps when intensity is controlled for. So consider this when creating your programming. Even though your sets may be the same, the volume may be affecting you differently depending on the modality. So, all right, so here's why I'm saying this. The free weights more than machines, compound lifts more than single joint, standing more than seated, higher reps more than lower. So this I've known this for a while, but I'm experiencing it right now. So I've been probably for the last 5 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks, I've been training almost entirely on machines, which I almost never do. I almost never do it on a consistent basis.
Breeze, huh?
Huh?
I bet that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
Nice and fun and easy.
Yeah. Well,
Machines.
So hold on. Yeah. So I'm doing this because I'm going to UFC Fit. They got that now. They have platforms. They have everything there, but they have all these machines I've never used. And when I go to a new gym, typically what I'll do is I'll do a bunch of stuff that I don't normally do just for the fun and the novelty. But for the last, like I said, 4 or 5 weeks, I'm like, I'm going to do just a pure. I've never done that, or I haven't done that in decades, where I just did machines for a consistent basis. And what I'm noticing, by the way, there's pluses and minuses to this. You may think that the damage aspect, the fact that because this is what I noticed, I don't get as sore. If I do the same sets with comparable free weight exercises to machines, there's more damage on the body with the free weights versus machines. And we could talk about why, but it's just true across the board. So I don't get as sore, which means I can do more volume. But I'm also noticing, so I notice I get good pumps. I can see why bodybuilders like it. I could also see that I'm losing functional strength as a result of not training with free weights and blah, blah, blah. But really the main takeaway is I do more volume when I train this way. It's not equivalent to when I'm using free weights. So this is important when you're creating your programming to consider this. For example, a standing shoulder press versus a seated shoulder press. You could do the same weight, same reps.
Totally different animal.
The standing one is gonna take your body a little longer to recover from. So it's important to know this when you're creating your programming, that they're not all created equal, that you'll get affected differently.
When I was training 7 days a week, one of my favorite techniques that I would do is to alternate the days of free weights and machines.
Oh,
because I was training so many days, and one of the ways to modify intensity would be that way, and I felt great doing that. So it's like for years before that, right? So when I was in my late teens, early 20s lifting, I was like all machine guy, never did free weights, and we've talked on the show many times of things that broke us through plateaus. I don't think I've ever shared that one, and that was a major plateau breaker for me. Was I used to love the hammer strength, the machines and cables, and it was I rarely ever did free weights because they were hard, and I could do so much more weight on all the machines, and so I stuck to doing that stuff. Not to mention it was easier to get into form, technique was easier, all the above, but my progress had stalled. And then simply going to all the big compound lifts and doing free weights, I saw this huge plateau buster. So I think there's a lot of young men, especially because I see a lot of younger guys that tend to gravitate towards the hammer strength and the machines all the time because they can do a bunch of weight, that are stuck at a plateau, that if they would just move away from that and go into free weights.
Yeah, that mentality is hard to break if that's how you've kind of been introduced into lifting weights, and and I guess that's where we want to get a hold of these young guys ahead of time. So, introduce them to these compound lifts with barbell training, because it is a hard transition to go from working out like that to now lifting, doing back squats, doing deadlifts, all these. It's a really hard skill to acquire, going from that.
I think the key is to reframe it. This is what I had to do, is reframe it as what gets me the best results.
Period.
Right.
Yes.
And so, as you get more experience, you start to realize, the more difficult the exercise and novel it is, and the more I suck at it, the more results I get from it. And so if you just approach the workouts like that, which is, oh man, if I suck at it and it's hard, I'm going to get the most return from it. Therefore, I should do it.
It's also this too. It's also because people typically will pose the question like this: what's better, free weights or machines? Okay, if I have to pick, then I'll make a choice, but I don't have to. Yeah. I have access to all of them. So yes, free weights will cause more damage. Therefore, we could say it sends a louder signal, more functional strength, that stuff. But machines allow for more volume to be used, which in volume also sends a muscle building signal. I can also use it and program it in when I need to, when I want to hit the muscles, but I don't want to cause as much damage to the body or much stress on the body. So the truth is, it's all how you use it. It's the mix. When you have ingredients, you can use more of this ingredient to create this type of a flavor, or more of this to create the flavor. It really depends on how you feel, what you've been doing. It's all valuable. So, because what we tend to do in our space is we tend to do this like, it's either this or that.
Yeah.
Why? Front squats or back squats? Which one? How about both? Like, what if I practice both of them, right? Leg press versus this. Like, if you have to make a choice, then I can answer it, but I don't have to. And a lot of people don't have to.
Yeah.
So there's value to all this stuff. And the value that I can see with machines is, and some people would say this is a negative, but I see it as a potential value. It doesn't cause a lot of damage. So I could go do a ton of volume and feel okay. I can't do the same amount of volume with free weights. Now, if I have limited time, now it makes sense, right? Stick to the free
I
weight.
just think if you don't introduce these harder lifts like early enough, it's like less likely.
True.
Like, because you can get away with doing machines for a long period of time, and no doubt, like you're still doing something. But to be able to have that contrast and be able to do kind of what Adam was talking about, like undulate that, so you can do your compound lifts, then you do like other days in between, so it's more volume driven and less impactful in the joints. And it's funny because now I'm like, I'll lean in on like the machines, because it's like I've done barbell training for so long. It feels good as a way to change it up.
Yeah.
And it feels a lot less damaging on the joints, which I love. But to have the baseline and the foundation first of those core lifts.
Agreed.
It's really important.
No,
Agreed.
it's a no. It's funny. It's like every other lesson that I've learned lifting weights and nutrition is like going from one extreme to the other extreme and then finding out it's somewhere in the middle, right? It's like I did nothing but machines for the longest time, then realized, I'm not getting the results. As soon as I started to do free weights, then it became like all free weights, and then I started to plateau, knee pain, tightness, stiffness, all these things that were bothering from lifting heavy in the same plane all the time. Oh, then I went the other direction. It's like learning to balance and modify intensity throughout the week, also based off of not only what you're doing with the lifts, but also what's happening outside of the gym too. I think that's what makes the other piece to this is like, okay, well, there's some truth to the machines don't do as much damage to as free weights. And so it's like, not only do I have to juggle, okay, the intensity that I was training at and how sore am I the next day, therefore I should probably do machines. I also need to factor in too, what was my rest like? What's my nutrition been like? And so even there's times where I'll choose machines when I'm not necessarily sore from doing free weights the day before or 2 days ago, but I also recognize that I've been sleeping poorly or like that. It's like, you know what? Here's a way that I can modify intensity, even though I'm not super sore. And that's normally how I would use the machines, is to pivot over that direction. But I'm also now factoring in other things like sleep and nutrition and stress. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not feeling my best. This is not the day to go heavy on my compound.
I think for sure your first few years of training, you should master the barbell, compound lifts. You should master them and get really good at them. But then after that, it gets kind of fun. And if you've been working out for 10 years, 15 years, or I've been working out for 30 years. Someone asked me the other day, how long have you been training? And I thought about it. It's all been over 30 years I've been working out. It's fun to do different things. It's a lot of fun. I have no limits, or why would I put limits on myself in terms of what I'm doing? But for the first 3 years of training, you should get good at those, so I want to be clear, get good at those compound lifts. They have the most.
It's so funny that, I mean, I don't know. I'd argue at least 5 years you could get away with like never doing anything but the 5 lifts.
Probably.
Like the 5 main lifts, just doing that for 5 years consistently.
More beneficial than anything.
And you would build such a solid foundation, and only doing that 3 days a week. 3 days a week, full body.
Even 2 days a week.
Yeah. Just consistently doing that and treating it as not as, my goal is to see how much weight I can necessarily put on the bar, but getting so good at the movement.
The technique.
Yeah, the technique of it and perfecting your form over those 5 years. And then like it just opens up every other pathway from there as far as like the way the results will come in.
Totally.